Hello everyone, welcome to our new series, Talkative Strangers. Today we have with us Shashwat Bajpai. Can you tell the audience a bit about yourself?
Hey, hello everyone. I'm Shashwat Bajpai. I've been working with the MathWorks. It's a company which builds the software for the engineers. For the past 2 years, I completed my bachelor's in 2019. Just life continued after that. So yeah, that's a bit about
Great.
Okay, okay.
So you said that you're interested in spirituality. So can you tell us
me.
what
Yes.
exactly spirituality? Because on YouTube, many YouTubers are every single line, spirituality, spirituality. They relate everything with spirituality. Any problem? Go to spirituality. Something happens, spirituality.
Yes.
So people don't know the exact meaning of spirituality. So can you tell us
Right.
that?
That's what I feel. For that, it's an in thing these days to say that I'm a spiritual person and I'm not a religious
Yeah,
person. Uh,
yeah,
uh,
Right, right,
from my
right.
perspective, both are the same things. Yeah. So it's about surrendering yourself to a supreme personality or a being or a power, whatever you want to call it. But
Hmm.
it's essentially the idea of letting things go, which are not in your
hmm,
hands. So, as I was saying, all we need in times of difficulties is essentially something to look forward to, someone to look forward to,
Right.
or seek help from someone. And that idea is what I think pushed the humans to develop the religions.
Hmm.
And all of the religions essentially have that same idea to surrender to a personality or a supreme being
Right,
and
right.
seek guidance from them. And all kinds of religions are just a way of life. They lay down
Hmm.
certain paths or rules, I want to say, for them, to reach that entity. And it can
Right.
be anything. So, like Christianity or Islam or Abrahamic religions, which idealize. I mean, idealize is the wrong word for those kinds of religions, but idealize of one personality and look forward to whatever they said and follow those principles to attain the supreme personality. In
Right.
Hinduism or Buddhism, all of them would be
Whatever
part
religions
of
that are being
Hinduism.
followed. Right, right. Hmm.
Yeah, so all of them have the same idea essentially, and that's what guided humans to do that. The path here, which the point here which I want to mention is uh, all of
Hmm.
this happened because we tend to give context to everything, tend to give meaning to everything. We need to define our existence. We need to define the existence of the world for our life to make sense, and
Causality
that's what.
bias. I'm telling the causality bias that is ingrained in our
Yes,
human species.
yes.
That everything is happening due to something.
Agreed. So the causality bias that we need.
Yes.
Yeah, we our lives have to make sense, or our existence has to make sense.
Right, right, right.
Uh, and science is exactly that. I mean, it's trying to answer those questions: what happened in the
Hmm.
beginning, what will happen at the end, and what all is the
Hmm.
meaning, why things happen a certain way. Science
Right.
defines it in a certain way, religion defines it in a certain way, spirituality defines it in
Hmm.
a certain way. You can believe whatever you want to. All that matters
Right.
is you should adhere to your own belief system, and at the same time not let down or not look down upon other belief systems as well, because all of
Right.
them are essentially going towards the same thing. A person who says they are an atheist essentially are questioning everything. They don't stick to certain ideologies. They
Hmm.
want to question their existence in life, and that's what an agnostic or a deeply religious person does. They question
Right.
their God. What is the
Hmm.
meaning in that? And that's
Right.
what spirituality is for.
Hmm.
That
Okay.
reach a certain end, a certain goal, be one with the
Yes.
personality or a being or power.
So you want to say that spirituality came first before the religion. Religion was a path that was basically made to get
Religion,
to
yeah, I would say
spirituality.
it's a path.
Yes.
Yes.
So why
So
is there many
I look
variety
at
in
it.
that?
So being born.
Yes, yes. I was asking why is there.
I'll come to that. So being born in Hindu family, I'll explain things from that perspective. There are a lot of
Okay.
things which are explained to people in terms of stories,
Hmm.
because stories are easier to grasp for the people.
Right, right, right. Exactly.
So if you look at something from some other perspective, or if you
Hmm.
remove yourself from the context and look at a problem, you get to
Hmm.
understand that problem in a deeper sense. And
Hmm.
that is what the religion or the path does to you, right? It
Hmm.
guides you to the destination. Uh,
Right.
so I would say that the our ancestors had an idea of spirituality, and
Hmm.
to make things easier for everyone to follow, because not
Okay.
everybody will question it.
Right. So they created
Not
some
everybody
story
is
behind that.
from the leader mindset, or they created a story. They created a way of being, or a way of life, so that society can function. The idea of
Hmm.
society, it's a construct, right? For
Right. Right.
humans to collaborate and work together. And that construct was created for things. So stories were created so that people have a better understanding of the idea of spirituality. Uh,
Hmm.
so I'll explain one of them. Let's say,
Okay. Okay.
uh,
Ramayana.
again, that's a debatable concept. Whether
Okay.
there are things, there are people who are still searching whether it was history, or whether it was mythology, or whether it's
Story.
just a
Right.
story. Because there are evidences being found, and then there is a anglicization of everything. So I'll not go into the epics or any such religious books which are followed by people.
Hmm.
I'll just explain. I'll just try pick one example of tradition. Let's say
Okay.
that the tradition of not letting women enter during on their periods, right?
Okay.
Idea
Yes.
was the idea there was, because they face a certain amount of pain, they can stay at home and relax and not enter, and they do not have to offer prayer in the temple. They can do it from their home.
Okay. Okay.
But it became misunderstood that you
Right.
shouldn't enter because you are
Yes.
you're
Yes.
not
Yes.
part.
You are not pure. You are not pious. Yes.
Yeah. So
Exactly.
it's a misunderstood idea of behind the actual thing that causes issues, that causes problems.
Hmm. Right.
Um, Again, like you mentioned, Ramayana, it can be a story, it can just be a myth, it can be actual history. Nobody knows, because when the British came, they said there is a quote which is hugely popular, and in recent days, from I don't know the actual historian which said that, but it's a British historian who said, the culture in India is so strong that
Hmm.
to overcome them, to rule them, we need to break that down.
Okay.
We need to tell
Right.
them that whatever they hold as true is wrong, and
Right.
is a myth.
Mm.
And thus, because we lost a lot of our texts
Cultures.
uh, when
Yeah,
when
libraries were
the
burned.
invaders came in, right?
Yeah,
You must have heard the story where when Babur or someone burnt the
libraries.
Takshila University, and they
Right.
burned for months. So
Yes. It
we
actually went
lost
from.
a lot of
Yeah,
text there, and that may be the reason we just believed stories which were trickled down from our ancestors to us, because it was just word of mouth, right? Uh,
Right.
Again, one of the there is a historian and a physicist called Abhijit Chavda,
yeah.
Yes. Yes.
and he has
Abhijit Chavda.
beautifully laid down a point that the oldest written version of Sanskrit was was 5,000 years old. Oldest written version, and
Okay.
from uh, from what they have understood, the oldest version of spoken Sanskrit could even have been 7,000 years old. And you see the amount of time that is spent in this era, and the amount of time which predates us, and that essentially defines what we were. What is Rig Ved? What are Upanishads? What are Veds and
Hmm.
Upanishads and
Quran.
everything else? Quran.
Right.
All of them are just way of life, right? Uh,
Hmm.
so I was reading Rig Ved one day, and it essentially mentions what to do if you want to achieve something, what you should do.
Yeah.
It's written in that era, but it
Hmm.
still is relevant today.
Right.
Right.
Something,
And
some
following
sort of religious text or
uh,
practices.
exactly. So you can call it a religious text because it is from the Vedic era. But
Hmm.
Hmm.
it being from the Vedic era does not necessarily mean that it is a religious thing. It is
Yeah.
sort of sort of the commandments which are there in Christianity or in Islam. It's the same thing, right?
Hmm.
The way of life, how to do things.
Hmm.
Veds are more, I'd say, scientific in that sense because they lay down ways of doing it, point by point procedure of what to do and how to do and how to achieve something. Some of the ways also mention black magic, if you want to call it. And uh, again, black magic to me is just science not discovered yet. So
Okay.
just
So you do
imagine
believe in that?
a person. I believe that there are things which science hasn't defined yet,
Okay.
we are still on that path of discovery.
Hmm.
Hmm.
So let's take an example of a person living in, let's say, the 15th century.
Okay.
Hmm.
If you had shown them a mobile phone, for them it would be magic,
Right.
right?
Right. Right.
Or a drone, that would be
Yeah.
magic for them.
Right.
So anything magical is essentially science not discovered yet. Take
Right.
So I am a fan of Marvel movies, and that's what Thor says. For you, it's magic. For us, it's science.
Hmm.
Okay.
The concept of
Yeah.
Bifrost, the Einstein-Rosen bridge, we have it in
Hmm.
theory, but he says that that's science for us. In
Hmm.
Thor: The Dark World, one of the least favorite movies of all MCUs,
Marvel. Yeah.
MCU movies,
Yes.
and yet
Yeah.
it hits on the concept of soul. When Jane Foster goes to Asgard and sees her astral projection being
Hmm.
used for the diagnosis of that the ether is in her. So they were calling it that this is your soul and we are monitoring it. And she said that this is the astral projection. And again,
Right.
that is science from her perspective, or magic from her perspective, and science from their
Yeah. Thanks
perspective.
for them.
Right.
So I believe that exactly. So I
Hmm.
believe that some things are still yet to be discovered, and
Okay.
we find or our ancestors have defined those things because they saw things, and to
Hmm.
see anything and not being able to define it confuses our head. So we gave context.
Right.
Again, it comes back to the
Yeah.
same point. We give context to everything. So we gave
Hmm.
context to the idea that there must be something, and this is how you do it.
Hmm.
So
Right.
it can be that there are some ideas which are yet to be discovered, and paths to discover that.
Hmm.
So, uh, so that's what I believe. I mean, you can do n number of things and yet not know what you are doing them for. And when you
Hmm.
start applying context to each and everything, when you
Hmm.
start thinking why is something made as a rule instead of a guideline. So in corporate life, we have
Hmm.
these two things, right? guidelines and rules. Guideline is essentially we suggest you do that, but a
Right.
rule is a hard
You
fact
should
that
do
you
that.
have to, you
Yes,
should
you
do
have
that.
to do that. Yes,
Exactly. But
that's it.
there is a reason why you should and you may are two different things, right? It is up
Right.
to you to pursue something,
Hmm.
but it is up to the society to make you pursue something.
Right. Right.
So for a rule to come into place, there has to be some origin. This
Yes.
and that's how we give. And again, that rule made our rule and then misinterpreted in various fashions, and that's where the
Right.
problem with hardcore religion comes in.
Okay.
Be it
Mm.
any kind of religion.
Yeah.
So you're basically trying to say that some of the practices that were valid at that time are not, they are obsolete basically. They have no meaning, but they
Maybe
are
may
still
not be.
practices.
Maybe may not
Okay.
be again. So let's take the example of Sati. Uh, Sati was a choice from the bride that whether they wanted to do whether they wanted to commit sati or not. The idea behind sati was that the bride couldn't handle the idea of staying without her husband and would like to end her life with him. An act of love, an act of devotion, an act
Mm.
of affection. It transformed into that you have to commit sati. So originally it
Mm.
was a voluntarily thing that if you want you can do it, but it
Right.
transformed into that you have to do it.
Mm.
That there is no other way you should live. You cannot live a widower. You have to commit sati, and that was the conversion. That was a movement from the essential idea of love to cruelty.
Right.
Uh,
Right. Right.
Mm.
there is an example of Ahilya Bai Holkar, one of the great queens. She wanted to commit sati when her husband died. Her father-in-law advised against it. She went on to become one of the great queens. So
Mm.
there are instances like that as well. And she didn't have to commit sati. No one was forcing her to commit sati. She wanted to do, and it was a voluntary thing.
Yeah.
So there are instances like that available still. I mean, not still and in the recent past, but that is the
Mm.
idea that something started with as a pure intention and
Yeah.
was misinterpreted and came out as a cruel thing or a bad thing to do.
Yeah.
So that's basically what our religion is, right? All the bad practices from a religion are exactly these. They were started for something else. They were misinterpreted and became something else. Maybe
Right.
lost in translation, sometimes lost in some language. Maybe they were written in some other
Hmm.
language and they were translated into some other language, and the person who interpreted it understood it differently. And all that happened with the religion as well. So again, to point that out, there is an example of why the points system in tennis is in this way. This is 15, 30, and 40. That makes no sense, right? For all other games have a linear point system, 1, 2, 3, and so on.
Mm.
But why does tennis have 15, 30, and 40? So it
Mm.
started with the people tracking points through the clock. So it was 15, 30, and then
Okay.
45.
Okay.
But
Okay.
but 45 was written in something differently in French. The English who were reading that number just read 40 because it was written 45 instead of 5 and 4. Because English wrote at that time 5 and 40. So
Okay.
there
Okay.
was not 45. So
Mm.
French wrote it as 45. But they just understood 40. So they took 40.
Mm.
Now it's just 15,
Okay.
30, and 40. And that's what
Hmm.
continued.
Mm.
So lost in translation. That's basically
Right.
it, right? And
Hmm.
that can happen
Right.
to anything. So
Right.
that's what I believe happened to religion as well. All the bad practices originated from something good, something pure. It might not be relevant today,